And now I can adjust this to curl around those tracking markers of the face. We can just click and drag and start painting. And now we can paint only the areas that we want to affect. Painting over the gums. And you can see, look at that. It paints as an overlay that color that we selected. So this is the image that we are going to use. I got it from Pixabay from this, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, but this user here. Thank you to you who have provided this for us, and it's free for commercial use, no attribution required, but I am attributing this to you because you have helped me here with this. So just free download, free Pixabay license if you want to follow along. Okay, let's delete this cube. We don't need that. Let's go back to frame 1, and then let's make sure our 3D cursor is still where we want it, and then Shift A and add in an image as planes. Now, if you don't have this, you need to come up here to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and search for images. Import images as planes. It should be there. All you have to do is check that box, and you should have that available. So Shift A, add in image and image as planes. Then just navigate to your folder and add that in. Okay, we can't see anything now because we are in solid shaded mode and we are in material. So we want to do flat and texture. Ta-da! But we want to bend this around the face, so let's tab into edit mode, and then we can add in a loop cut, Control R, and then just hover your mouse around the top or the bottom in the middle here, and then click, and then right click to set that. And then we can add in a subdivision surface modifier by going to your modifiers, subdivision surface, click simple, and then I'm just going to put both of these at 6, and I'm going to uncheck optimal display, and then I'm going to add in another modifier as a simple deform, and then it's already starting to deform, but we want to collapse this one and then choose bend, and nothing is happening. And that is because if we do start bending it, again, nothing happens. So we're going to, if we change this axis here to Y, nothing happens, or Z. Okay, so now something's happening on the Z, but this is the wrong direction. So I'm going to select all in edit mode still, and then rotate on the X 90, enter. Okay, so now it's bending in the proper direction. And if I increase that angle, you can see it starts to bend. Now, if it's still not bending in the proper direction, just change that angle again. And if it's still not working, then I would, either rotate this on the z-axis 90 or on the y-axis 90, just so you can get it to where it's starting to bend at least some direction. And then modify these here to get it to bend the correct way. Okay, so I'm going to tab out into object mode, and then I'm going to rotate in object mode this time on the X -90. Back up the way it was. And now I can adjust this to curl around those tracking markers of the face. You can see right there. Like that. But now we need to do the same thing we did with our cube and add in an object constraint, object solver, and then select head, and then camera, and then of course we need to set our inverse, and then back there. So now it's just a matter of placement. So let's, in the 3D view, I'm going to place, because I'm not going to be using the nose, it's just going to be the mouth. So we're going to place that, I'm just going to grab that on the Y and move that back to where I think those markers, and actually I can come over here to the motion tracking, select all of the markers that way, and then that way here, I can see them here if I select my camera. A little bit easier. Another thing I'm going to do is come up here and then click X-ray. And now we can see through any of our 3D objects. So I'm going to grab that again on the Y and probably right about here. I'm just looking at these trackers down here around where the mouth is going to be. You can see like that. So as far as depth, that looks pretty good. So now it's just a matter of placement in our view here. So we can actually adjust our X-ray here to kind of move, and now we can just kind of scale it down and adjust it as we need. So I'm just gonna place this over the mouth, rotate it here to kind of where my face is. And by the way, you should probably do this on frame 1, just so that you can get the best placement there. And yeah, actually, I think that's pretty good. That might be a little bit too big. I don't know. I don't really know how big my teeth are. But that looks like maybe that's going to be a little bit too big. Let's just adjust that. I don't know, maybe just a little bit smaller. So we'll just scale it on the Y. And if you hit Y twice, sometimes that will go up and down in local space. But I found that if you import the images as planes, it kind of messes with the local axes. So what you can do is, because I don't want to just go straight up and down right now. I want to go up and down according to the picture. So if I grab and press YY, okay, that doesn't work. Right click to cancel, grab, and then press ZZ. Okay, so see how that changed. If I right click to cancel, press G to grab, and then Z on the Z axis once, it goes straight up and down. But if I press Z again, it's going to go according to the picture. So I actually want to scale it like that. So I want to press S to scale, and then ZZ, and we're just going to make those teeth just a tad bit smaller. Grab ZZ, and then put those right here. I think that's pretty good. You know, I'm actually just lining up the teeth with the mouth where I think that they should go. I'm not looking at the nose at all. And actually, if you look at the photo here, whoever photoshopped this didn't actually make the teeth straight. So here's where the middle of the teeth should be. And here's where the middle of the teeth actually are, which is fine. But for this picture, you just have to keep that in mind. Okay, so let's scroll out and see what we've got. So let's press play. All right. It looks like it's tracking on pretty nicely. Awesome. So let's look at that again without the X-ray mode here. Looks like I have a huge chin right now. Okay, so this is good for now. We will probably have to adjust this later after we do some texture painting. But for now, it's tracking along pretty nicely. So let's move on to the next step, which is alpha painting. Okay, so next step is alpha painting. So far, we have our picture wrapped around, kind of bending around our trackers, our 3D trackers, and that's constrained to our motion, our tracking motion here. You can see that looks like that. So that's what we've done so far. And now what we need to do is we need to paint out all the areas that we don't want, or rather paint in the area, only the areas that we want. And this is really cool. The first thing we want to do is come over to our UV editor and make sure that we have a good unwrap, which we already do because that's what is unwrapped by default when we imported this image in. So we don't have to do anything with this now. Let's go over to the shading, and we're going to adjust the shaders here. So I'm going to disconnect the alpha from here, and let's scroll in here, of course, and let's change kind of what we see here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the drop down and decrease the world opacity all the way down. I don't care. I don't want to see that right now. Just make sure you're in the Eevee renderer, and then go into camera mode here. Okay, and we can already see we've got a blank texture, but we're going to adjust this just a little bit more here. I'm going to select our principled, press Shift S to change this principled into an emission shader. For now, we will change this later. But then I'm going to Shift A to add in a transparent BSDF shader, and then Shift A one more time and add in a mix shader. So we're going to drop the mix shader here and then move this down and put the transparent on the top. Now this is important when it comes to alpha painting, which you'll see here in just a minute. Next thing, I'm going to Shift D to duplicate this texture, and then where this says this little 2, I'm going to click that little 2 to make it a duplicate. So these are not linked anymore, they are their own images. I'm going to click in here, type in alpha, and then take the color from the alpha, put it into the factor of the mix shader. Okay, so let's pull this out over here. I don't need the file browser, so I'm just going to collapse this one here, and then we're going to select our alpha. Right now, it is the same picture as our zombie, but we don't want it like when a completely black texture. So press N and go to image. We want these to be the same dimensions, so 1920 by 1109. And then up here, single image, change that to generated. And then this is where we have to change this back. 1920 to 1109 is what we had. I'm going to select blank and then turn the color alpha all the way up to black. So we have a black image that's the same dimensions as our original image. Okay, so next thing you want to do is come over to your materials tab, make sure blend mode is alpha blend if it's not already, and then uncheck show backface. And now we are ready to paint. So we've got our texture all set up here in the shading, and now we want to go to texture paint mode. Let's go over here, select our alpha, and I'm going to go to view and uncheck display texture paint UVs. Let's go into camera mode and of course go into material preview mode, and we are ready to start painting. Let's go back to frame 1. I'm going to just bring in a timeline here. Go back to frame 1 so we can see what frame we're on here. Just get rid of that summary. Perfect. Going to save it. Save often. So in texture paint mode, you want to make sure you're in texture paint mode up here. You want to make sure that you don't have your paint mask selected. You want to make sure that you're in draw mode here. And then over on this top tool tab, you want to make sure you select alpha. This is really, really important. And of course, make sure your zombie is already selected. You can't actually select different ones when you're in texture paint mode. You see how it's darker orange and the one that's selected is lighter orange. If you need to select something else, you have to go out into a different mode and then back in to this when you're done. So for example, if you have your camera selected and then you try to go into texture paint mode and select your image. Oh, it actually did work, and that's because we're in object mode. But because we can't actually be in texture paint mode in when we're in our camera. So we actually have to have this selected, and then we can go into texture paint mode. But once we're in texture paint mode, we can't select anything else. You either have to come out into object mode here or go into a different workspace. All right, next thing we want to do is paint, but this is going to work just like a layer mask in Photoshop if you're familiar with it. So all black is invisible and all white is visible, and anything in between is kind of faded. So we want to paint with all white here is what I have now. And to switch this, we can just click this button here, swap colors to black. And a shortcut for this is X. So if you just press X, it'll go back and forth between black and white, which is exactly what we want to do. And so with white selected, we can just click and drag and start painting. And now we can paint only the areas that we want to affect. And this is, when I found this out, how to do this, this was just a game changer. I just love this. This is awesome. All right, and now you can change your brush up here. So your fall off, all of this stuff is down here. So you've got it down here as well as up here. But I'm going to go ahead and change the fall off to a very sharp fall off like this, and even bring this down a little bit. And to see what that's doing, come over to your cursor, your fall off opacity, just click the little eye there, and you can kind of see where that's being painted on. And you can also increase that opacity too, so you can see that over your face. Let's just do 100. There we go. So something like that. Okay, so let's say I go too much here, like, oh, okay, I don't want it all the way up there. Just press X, and now we're painting black, and we just paint that out. And you can see what's happening over here too. So if I start painting that out, then it paints the black over there. Awesome. Okay, so with this, let's just press play, and you can see, haha, it's actually moving along with it. But you notice we're going to have to adjust our image because it looks like it's sliding a little bit. And that's just because it's not lined up properly. So with my face kind of turned this way. I'm gonna line this up here. So let's go into our layout mode here. Make sure we're in a material preview. And then I'm gonna grab that and then hit Y twice so that we're going back and forth according to the picture. I'm gonna slide this up all the way until it looks like where I want that to be. And then take a look at that. Yeah, it's getting there. It's a little better. I think maybe it can go back a little bit more, maybe. I don't know. And it is a bit deceiving here in the real-time material preview because as it moves, it kind of looks like it's sliding. Some of that is just Blender's updating the viewport. So you can kind of scrub through and see if it's actually sliding or not by, yeah. So yeah, you'll just have to kind of play with that. I do notice that I think I could probably wrap this around the face just a little bit more. So let's go back to that modifier and just bend that around just a little bit more like that. And maybe that's too much. I don't know. What you want to do is just after you make a change, actually that looks pretty good. Yeah, I like that. You just want to make sure it's not just one frame you're looking at. You want to scrub through and make sure it's working on all of your frames. But yeah, you can see it looks like it's sliding there. I think that's just Blender updating that. And that's pretty cool there too. Okay, I think that is, yeah, I like that. Okay, so let's go back to texture paint mode. I'm gonna add in some more teeth here. So I want that, let's just go into frame one. Oh, wrong one, hit X and paint. I'm going to do the top tooth here. And we're going to actually leave this here. Now to change the brush size, all you have to do is press F and then move your mouse left or right. So I'm going to just move that down and then add some of that in. And what you can do here like this, see this is kind of all faded in, but what you can do is come down here and then let's just add some of this back. I want it to kind of be like, like that. And then you can make it really small and then like do like jagged edges just by kind of, you know, moving your mouse around a little bit, zooming in here. You know, something like that. If that's what you want to do. If you like the more faded look, that's fine too. That's just another option. Yeah. So basically that's all I'm going to do. Just shape this out a little bit more and then we'll go on to the next step. If you want to blend it a little more too, you can actually come up here and decrease the strength, something like 0.15, and then that way you can kind of get a lot smoother of kind of a transition there. Yeah, it's just up to you. I'm not really that good of an artist per se, even though I know how to do some of these things, I don't necessarily know when it comes to the actual artistry of things. Okay, so yeah, that's looking pretty good. I like that. And we've got our alpha mask made here. Actually, you know what? You can see on this mask, here's all the little, let's go back to the beginning here. All the little jagged edges I made here, but you can see underneath that there's still some showing through. So you can actually paint on this as well. So if I just go to black, I can paint black where I know I don't want anything showing through. It's just a bit of a better visualization here because sometimes that's hard to see over here. All right, everything else I think looks pretty good. Okay, so this next step is super important. You need to save your alpha image. This is so important because it doesn't matter if you save Blender, but if you don't save the image, if you reload Blender in any way, and you don't save those images, they're gone, and you have to repaint, which is a pain in the butt. So come over here, save a copy, create a materials folder. I've already created one, so I'm going to just say materials 2 and then save as alpha PNG. Now, it doesn't actually need the RGBA as alpha because it's an alpha mask. It's just a black and white image. So you can even save this as a JPEG or whatever you want. So I'm just going to keep it like this and save as image. And now that little star next to the image means that it's been saved. And this is a good workflow to get into if you start making changes here and start painting. Once you make a change, you have this little asterisk star next to the image, and then occasionally just hover your mouse over here, press Alt S to save, and the star goes away. Okay, so let's add some color to this bad boy now. This is also really cool. I love this step. We can either come back to shading or we can stay in texture paint mode actually, and I'm going to just drag another window up and we're going to change this to the shader editor. It's the same thing here. Here is our material. Let's go ahead and rename this material. So I'm going to hover my mouse over here, control space to make this our full screen here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make another alpha mask, but we're going to make it for a color. So just like the alpha mask is affecting this mix shader, we're going to do it for the color on the picture. So I'm just going to move this over here and we'll keep this one over here so we know that this alpha is affecting this one. I'm going to Shift D to duplicate that alpha, click the little 2 to make this its own image, and then I'm just going to rename this one to alpha underscore gums. And then I'm going to actually just rename this one to alpha all, because this is going to affect everything. So then we have our alpha gums, and then I'm going to add in a color mix RGB. Just like we added a mix shader, because we have two shaders here that we mix together. This time we're going to be adding two colors or two textures. So we need a mix RGB instead of a mix shader. So I'm just going to drop that here. And I apologize, actually, we're not going to be mixing this. We're going to be using this as the factor, just like we're using the factor here. What we are going to be doing is mixing a color on top of our image. But I don't want to mix it. I want to actually make it an overlay. So just change that to overlay. Okay, so now let's connect our alpha to our factor. Control space to go back to our regular view here. Okay, I'm going to scroll in here. So now we've got this white overlay on top of our image. In Blender, if you don't know this already, the node on the bottom here is actually the top layer on our image, which is really weird. So we want this to be the bottom image and our color as an overlay on the top of it. But notice still we are painting on our alpha all. So this is super important. When you change the texture you're painting on or the image that you're painting on, you need to make sure you have that selected. So now we have an alpha all and an alpha gums here. We do have this selected, but for some reason it's not showing up here. So if I just click that again, now you can see alpha gums is showing. Of course, it's an exact duplicate. So I could come back here and go to image and then single image generated and then change everything again, but that's a bit tedious. I'm just going to make sure that I am painting all black and then just paint over that. Cool. Now we've got that, and the gums I want to be more of a reddish color, of course. So I'm going to bring that down to red, and now with our gums selected and our color as white, we can start scrolling in and painting over the gums. And you can see, look at that, it paints as an overlay that color that we selected. And we can just paint anywhere on our gums. And the cool thing about this is if I paint outside, it's not going to work. Or it is going to work, it's just not going to show. Because it's being constrained by this alpha all, which we have in our mix shader here, which is the alpha of everything. So that is super cool. So I'm just going to keep painting. Now, this first one, the gums, is going to be the most tedious because we've got, some uh, precision work that we have to do here. But once this precision work is done for the gums, then painting the teeth and painting everything else is going to be a piece of cake because we don't need as much precision. So I'm just going back and forth with black and white and kind of painting and subtracting that paint or erasing that paint. And I'm just noticing that I might be able to move just slightly over to the left, all of the teeth, but yeah, we'll cross that later. I guess after I saved it or something, it switched to alpha all. Yeah, I saved it and now it's switched to alpha all. I have no idea why. Just make sure you always have the proper one selected. I don't know if this is supposed to be bone or flesh or whatever. I'm just gonna make it, we're gonna make that flesh because we're gonna be coloring a different color. Okay, so that's good enough for now. You can spend as much time on this as you want, of course. All right, so we're just gonna do the same thing. So we're going to take our overlay and our alpha, and we're just gonna duplicate those and just move those up here, just like that, and just move everything back. Actually, I'm gonna move these up here like that because we want these to be on the topmost one. So we'll bring these back here like this. And then I'm going to connect our image into the bottom one. And then this color goes into this color. And then that doesn't go in there. So now we have a double red overlay, as you can see there. If I press M to mute that, you can see what that does. Let's actually make this a single user by clicking that 2 to make it its own image, and then label this teeth. All right, and then we're gonna make sure our teeth are selected, and we're gonna do the same thing and just paint all this out. Okay, so color of the teeth. I'm not gonna change any of the saturation and value, but I'm gonna change the hue to something like that, and we'll see what we get here. So now we can just start painting, make sure we're on our teeth, and we have our white paint enabled, and now we can just start painting. And we don't have to be that careful because we've got the red on top, so anything we paint underneath it's not going to show through, or actually it is going to show through. So I guess we have to be somewhat careful. We don't have to be that careful, not as much as the gums. But because we're painting an overlay, it's still keeping the original kind of black and whitish image, which we never really did turn that image into true black and white, did we? That's another option that you can do. All right, so there we go. There's the teeth. And the next thing is the flesh around it. So I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to duplicate these and we're going to rig those up the same way. Skin, and click on skin over here, and we're going to paint black over here. Okay, and now we're going to change that to white, and we're going to paint, oh, so we don't want to paint yellow. Forgot to change the color. So for this, I'm actually going to just select a piece of the skin around it. So with this eyedropper here, just going to select something like that. Ta-da! And just going to paint like that around it. Now again, I don't know if this is supposed to be flesh here. Whoops. But that could be like garbled flesh or something. You can make that, a different color if you want. In fact, we could probably come down here and just bring it like down a little bit, like the color. But yeah, something like that. I don't know. Entirely up to you. Let's say I'm going to go back to our alpha. So I'm just going to go, I don't need to click on anything over here. Whoops. Just go back up here and just go to alpha all. And then I just want to make sure this is a little, whoops. This is a little bit cleaner here. A little bit more jagged. There we go. Something like that. All right, save it. Make sure you're saving often. I'm not saving often enough. I'm getting lucky. Oh, and also our images. I forgot actually to save. So this should be alpha all. We've already saved that. So Alt S, and then alpha gums. We're going to save as, and then we're gonna just name this alpha gums. So that's linked to that. Alpha teeth. So Alt Shift S is to save as, same thing. Alpha teeth and alpha skin. Alt Shift S. And ideally, you're going to want to do this right away so that as you're painting, you can occasionally come over here, press Alt S, and keep going so you don't lose any of that work. But I always forget, so means a lot of redoing work. But anyway, let's scroll out here and see what we have. So, haha, we have something like, looks pretty cool. I like it. Okay, so I am gonna go ahead and just move this over just ever so slightly. Just hit X twice. And we're gonna move that over to line that up a little bit better with the middle there. Yeah, that's a little bit better where those teeth should be. I don't know, those teeth look pretty big to you still. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll just keep it like it is. You can mess with yours and more fine detail. All right, so the texture painting is done. Now let's talk about lighting. So if you're liking what you see so far, please consider supporting me by going over to Gumroad and purchasing the full course Zombie Face. It's a starter pack here. It's a pre-order, so pre-order at $15, which is half off $30 for now. But it includes a whole bunch of different things. We're going to depth camera tracking. You get a skull. I've modeled a skull for you to use in your 3D object environment. You fit it to your head and to your face, and you can paint it on, and it will create negative spaces, so you have like eye sockets and stuff. It's really cool. There's also an occlusion mask there that I'll include, and I'll teach you how to make an occlusion mask to fit your own face. We also got a moving jaw here, so I'll teach you how to rig up that jaw to where it moves with your mouth. We've got a whole bunch of extras too: 2D masking, cutting out holes in your head, putting clean plates behind there, making brains. I'll show you how to do all this. Color grading your skin, making it more of a decayed look like a zombie, and even matching the shadows of your original contour of your face and casting that onto your zombie face. So all of that is 50% off now. Again, pre-order only. Right now, the creation of the course will depend on how many people are interested and how many pre-orders I receive. The deadline is October 29th, which is 2 weeks from today. Well, 2 weeks from a couple days ago. But yes, please consider supporting me, and hopefully I will see you over there.